HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War, Warhammer, and I'm bringing you a battle where I'm going to be playing as the dwarves, and I'm going to be trying to play more battles myself, though honestly the replays you guys send me are probably more interesting sometimes than what I dig up on my own accord, but I need to still play the game, or else I'll be completely irrelevant at it in the sense that I won't remember how to play. So this is a dwarf runesmith, rune lord build. It's got 5 dwarf warriors up front, rune lord, 2 runesmiths. One runesmith specializes in has the anti-missile rune, and the other one has the one that buffs attack. So it kind of gives you a little bit of both. I've got 3 miners, 2 of them with blasting charges, 1 in the middle, 1 in the flanks, 4 quarrelers, 1 slayer, 1 dragonback slayer, 1 grudge thrower, 1 goblobber grudge thrower. So that is my army. Pretty weak infantry all around. But my opponent was the beastmen, and I knew that the beastmen would either have to spend a lot on anti-armor bestigor, or they would be packing a whole lot of non-armor piercing infantry, like these ungore herds, or any other like gore herds, any other type units that they can field. So I figured that would be the case. My opponent actually brought Malagor, which is pretty cool. I actually think Malagor is definitely a viable lord for the beastmen right now, and he's summoned up another Cygor. Yeah, so he's got 2 Cygors, and I think he's hoping that since the dwarves are relatively immobile, I can use these Cygors to cause a pretty good amount of damage. And here, I believe he's using Vile Tide against me, which is a explosion type of spell. It did decent damage. I don't know if it gets him like any. Picked him up a couple of kills, but yeah, his Cygors are tossing away. 10 kills there, 4 kills here, and I mean they're weakening up some of my units significantly, but I'm not really concerned about his Cygors. They will definitely damage my infantry, but my infantry isn't the key component of this build. So what's really important for me to win this battle is to get rid of his armor-piercing infantry. And bestigor are pretty good infantry, but their weakness lies in the sense that they don't have a shield. They do have decent armor and they're armor-piercing, but any infantry unit is weak to the goblobber. So I'm basically going to focus down some of the bestigor herd and damage them as badly as I can. And then I'll use my runesmith's Rune of Wrath and Ruin and the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin to basically tear up the infantry for me, while the tankiness of the dwarf warriors allows them to do what they're going to do. In this case, I do have to deal with Malagor, and I have to deal with only 1 Gorebull because he's gone heavier on infantry. He's swinging wider on the flanks with these Ungore herd, which is a pretty cool idea because they're fast. And I can't see them at this point either. Like, they're still hidden to me, so nice use of the forward deploy. Now, the good thing for me is that Slayers, while are also good against large, they're also very good against lightly armored units like these Ungore herd. They will trade quite well. So his troops come into range. I'm going to try and refocus my Quarreler fire onto some of his bestigor. I get a little bit going on here. Over here, though, my fire is a little bit distracted. So one of his bestigor is significantly damaged. His Gorebull attacks my flank, and I don't like that because I don't want his Gorebull into my archers early. And I'm kind of unconcerned with this front line. So I'm going to attack Gorebull, and while I'm headed that way, I'm going to start dropping some Wrath and Ruin on his troops over here. So I'll start dropping that on all them, and basically start damaging up his infantry. Now, I accidentally clicked an Ungore herd. That was definitely the wrong target. I should have hit the bestigor herd. Both of them, in fact. The bestigor herd would have been better targets. So that was a mistake on my part. Oh, there is 2 Gorebulls, my bad. You always have 2 Gorebulls in a Beastman build. So he was about to get to my Goblobber here and my other Grudge Thrower, and I kind of noticed it at the last second. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to run away from him, and I don't want my Quarrelers dying this early. So I'm going to send Slayers over and Miners and basically intercept these 2 Ungore herd because they're not going to be a huge threat. My Quarrelers are definitely taking some damage over time. This Gorebull is getting swamped by 3 heroes and a Miners, so he's going to get overwhelmed. And then on this flank, my Slayers, the Dragonback Slayers, are actually ripping into Gorebull pretty well. And I'm going to follow up on him. He rolls over here into my Quarrelers. I'm going to follow up, and his Ungore herd are blocked. And basically, I'm just going to try and keep the Goblobber and the Grudge Thrower alive in case they're needed later in the battle. Malagor, I didn't know. Like, it looks like he has missile resistance. No wonder it wasn't doing anything. I didn't know. I didn't look at this during the battle. He has a little bit of missile resistance, and I'm not doing a lot of damage to him, but it is keeping him back from the fight. And then the infantry fight is going exactly how expected. I'm not expecting my infantry to do great here. I'm just expecting them to hold, while Wrath and Ruin and other stuff gets me the rest of the way. You can see Gorbel was routed. I accidentally followed him here with a Runesmith for a moment. I'll turn him around here in just a moment. And then I'm going to come back over here with the Runesmith and the Miners and re-engage these Bestigor Herd, which are having a decent day versus my guys over here. More Vile Tide coming in. And it's, you know, against blobs, probably not a bad choice. But yeah, just keep my artillery still safe. It can come back later. Runesmith and Rune Lord are going to dive into the Bestigor Herd and start dealing damage to them. The Bestigor Herd broke through over here. One of them did. The other one was defeated. And now I'm going to do a little bit of fire on it with my Quarrelers. And again, you can see his Cygors are firing away the whole time. This one's about to go away. 75 kills, and it's not a bad use. Not a bad use of magic at all. Malagor has to flee from this combat here, and his Bestigor are now like just kind of bogged down a little bit. I've got Quarreler Fire coming in, and then over here the Rune of Wrath and Ruin and the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin are being used to very good effect. So these Bestigor just got pulled apart. And again, the Dwarf Warriors are just making it slow for the Bestigor to cut through. Gorbel came back from routing with 400-something hit points left. That is one frustrating bull. Yeah, both of them are here, even though they're relatively low health right now. This one should be able to be rerouted. He's going to get some work done in the meantime. And over here you can see the Bestigor actually being bested by the combination of my Runesmiths and Dwarf Warriors. Dwarf Warriors get some pretty significant buffs in the presence of the Runesmith. They're not going to be super easy to break. One way to get rid of Dwarf Warriors pretty quickly is Terror, but if you bring a Terror build and your Dwarf opponent has a bunch of Slayers or Longbeards or something, then that plan can go south pretty fast. The Dwarfs have pretty resilient leadership. So you can see here I'm going to beat the last Bestigor over on this side, and over here I'm just going to bunch up a few more troops after this Gorbel. We got rid of one. The Slayers have actually done a pretty good job of helping me clean up Gorbel. There's one Bestigor Herd inbound, and I do believe I send a unit, like a... no, I didn't. I remember seeing it, and I guess I just didn't care enough to turn a unit around and attack it. Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was doing. I forgot. So I was going to remount my artillery and fire into the back of the Bestigor, so I was going to leave the back of it open for that. But yeah, it did leave me wide open to a full rear charge, which is not ideal, but it was going to allow for this scenario. But by the time my artillery was actually up and ready to fire, the Bestigor had routed already. And you can see that they're going to take a nice Goblobber shot there. So the Beastman Infantry just really couldn't outlast, even with all the help from the Cygors, which was significant. You're talking about almost 200 kills from the Cygors, and they still couldn't outlast the cheap Dwarf Infantry here because of the Wrath and Ruin and the leadership and attack buffs that come from the Runesmiths. The Dwarfs can be tricky that way. Getting into long, drawn-out battles with them is typically not good. You either have to wreck them from range with superior artillery, which you can sometimes do. Dwarf players will sometimes take for granted that they are rather unmobile, and they won't bring any artillery. And in this case, if I hadn't brought any artillery and I had to attack my opponent, he could have gotten a lot of work done with his Cygors. But since my artillery started attacking him, I kind of ruined one of his Bestigor units. And that's a big deal. Over here, I'm going to go attack. Like, I had the Slayers left, and they're probably the best suited for taking down a Cygor. They don't. The Cygor has like 50 armor, which is a decent amount, but you have to have a ton of armor to really start helping against the Slayers. And then they got some anti-armor buffs in the last patch too, so the Slayers are pretty good at this type of work. You can see that a little slow at first, but then they start tearing off the hit points of this Cygor very quickly. My leadership squad's still alive, both Runesmiths and the Rune Lord. Malagor was chasing off some routing units, and I've regrouped all my units here. I have my Grudge Throwers, and I was using them to just put some extra hits on some of the routing units over here to force them off the battlefield entirely. Now I'm going to turn it towards Malagor, and I actually hit him with one. That's hilarious. Yeah, wavering from army losses, so we managed to get the Cygor, and then we managed to rout Malagor, and it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory for me. I've got one other replay that I'll bring to you, and that one should be right here. And this is where I had game trying to play a triple Shaggoth build up against the Empire, and I was like, man, if the Empire brings, like, so there were certain armies that worried me more than others, but here's what I had in mind with this build. I was like, so the Empire, if it fields enough Demigryph Knights and, like, you know, say like a good solid Lord like Boris Todbringer, some Demigryph Knights with halberds and a life, Lore of Life wizard, it could be ugly. And I say that because this Shaggoth core here is pretty intimidating. But Demigryph Knights with halberds can do a lot of damage. Now, there are 3 of them, so granted, the Shaggoths can do a ton of damage in return to Demigryphs, but with the Lore of Life, it can be kind of dangerous. I've got a Death Sorcerer on a Chaos Steed here, Kolek, 2 Dragon Ogres, and then a front line of 6 Forsaken. And the Forsaken, I really like these guys. I noticed it was a flat map before the battle, so I was like, alright, I'm going to go with the Forsaken build, even though I felt like it was maybe a bit risky. But to me, the all-around Chaos build is just maybe even a bit more risky, because in this case, slow units like the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, I mean, it just would have slowed me down more. So I did not actually notice my opponent's Light Wizard back here at first. I didn't notice it. General of the Empire, he's got Sigmar's Sons, Tattersouls, halberds on either flank protecting handgunners, one of which is Silver Bullet. Actually, the Silver Bullets is back here in the center, and there's 3 handgunners in total. There's a couple spears on either flank. Looks like my opponent has opted for a lot of money into this Hammer of Witches, which can do a lot of damage if it's given the opportunity. Like right here, if it's targeted at Kolek, it can certainly help. Yep, like right there, do you see that hit from the Hammer of Witches? Did a ton of damage. The handgunners are doing damage. This extended net was definitely bad, but I was like, you know what? The net sucks, but I know my Forsaken are going to absolutely shred his infantry in the center and on the left. So I'm going to let them continue to do that. Then I decided to go ahead and send this infantry unit in because it wasn't caught by the net. The net's now gone. So what I'm going to do is try and bust straight through his halberds and immediately lay waste to the Light Wizard, while I know my infantry forces will be winning the other flank. I just hit the opponent with an overcast Doom and Darkness, which takes off 16 leadership, and then getting hit by the Terror of the Shaggoths should be enough to insta-route this flank, which it pretty much did. Hit this unit with Lightning because it was standing still, so that Lord of the Storm ability. The Altdorf Griffites, definitely a tough foe, but again, against 3 Shaggoths and with no healing, they're going to take a considerable amount of damage. The Light Wizard was routed, which basically got my objective complete. Kolek routes, unfortunately for me, but my 2 Shaggoths lay into these Altdorf Griffites along with my Chaos Sorcerer, and they're able to pretty quickly lay waste to them, while the other flank has been completely wrapped up by Forsaken. Forsaken will absolutely devastate anything in the Empire roster, except for greatswords. So you got to be careful of that when you're an Empire player, because Forsaken can chew through your lines in a massive hurry. Huge hurry. They're a dangerous unit to the cheaper infantry. The Bright Wizard tried to net me, but then he routed because the army losses were mounting. I didn't even end up having to fight the Empire General on his steed, and I was using these Warhounds to run after like kind of routing units and stuff in the background. So the Chaos Rush there was actually very successful in this case. My opponent, having brought the artillery, actually kind of played right into this build. The net was kind of a nice touch because I ran all my units together. He was able to net them all at once. One way you could have gotten around that is if you would have had better scouting than what I did there. You could just split up your 3 different Shaggoths enough to where the net would only catch one of them, meaning the other 2 could go ahead and punch through and put some pressure on that Light Wizard. But I mean, the net can happen pretty quick, and if you're not paying attention, you haven't done good scouting, it will definitely catch you off guard. It's a great spell, and it's something that the Empire has to use to its advantage to make up for the fact that their infantry is pretty subpar for the most part. But yeah, the Empire is a very flexible faction in the sense that they have a few good leaders, they have decent artillery, they've got a nice ranged option with handgunners, and they have crossbows if you need them, and then they have decent cavalry, so that's really, they have better support units than they do mainline infantry in terms of the Empire. But you see, it was a pretty big success for me in that one. But I appreciate the fun game from my opponent, Captain Falcon. He was a viewer, very nice guy. Was happy to run into him. I believe my first opponent was a viewer as well. I almost can't play a game without people recognizing me, which is quite humbling to know that there's that many of you out there who watch my videos. I greatly appreciate your patronage on my channel. I really like making this content for you every night. It is a highlight for me, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I hope you all do too. I appreciate MSI sponsoring my channel. I appreciate you being here. If you want to subscribe, my logo's down in the bottom right hand corner. It will keep you up to speed on new videos, so that if you want to keep up with them, you'll know right when they come out. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you soon.